All right, the next item on our agenda is old business. The board policies and the press policy update. I want to refer that back to Tim and my committee with Kevin. And Dan, I'm going to ask you on the outside groups, if you could just forward me all the information you have on that. If you do that, and then we would like to come back and discuss this further. Okay?
Okay.
So that's A and B. Tim, you have any problem that we just look at that?
No, that's good.
Okay. All right, then the next thing is, let's talk about finance budget items in old business. What we want to do tonight is to look at the five things. One is reductions in the athletic program and the coaching positions. We also want to look at the reduction in activities and club stipends. We also want to look at the increase in the activity fee of $25 per student. And we also want to approve the pay to participate fee, and then we also want to, and we're going to hold this off the proposal for outside funding for co-curricular programs as presented. We're going to hold that off. We'll take, I want to have a little bit more discussion on it. We will discuss it tonight, but we want to look from there. So let's start out with the athletic program. And Art, you want to talk about it? I know we talked a lot about it, so. You are proposing $161,000 in athletic cuts, am I right?
Matt, if I could interrupt.
Yeah.
What about A? Are you postponing that, the board policies outside groups?
Yeah,
Yeah,
We're postponing that.
yeah.
To the committee, or?
To the committee, we'll talk about that.
All right.
we haven't met yet with the,
It's the outside fund, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so Art, your $161,000, $161,811 is your athletic cuts, am I right?
Correct.
You want to go over just one more time?
Basically, we got to that cuts by eliminating the 3 assistant ADs, 1 coach from pretty much every sport, football 2, and then the big one was the 30% cut in supplies across the board, along with eliminating all staff development to get us to that number. There was a review sheet that was sent, should have been in the packet, that highlights all of that. Yeah, I don't know. The athletic trainer, too, will move to an assistant instead of 2 athletic trainers, so that shows the amount saved there. And I think that's pretty much on that sheet is where we'd save on each line item of how much we'd save for each one.
Any questions for Art on this?
Yeah, I have 2 documents here, Art. And the portrait size one here doesn't have water polo on it.
That was created
It's
by
a legacy, right?
the business office that was off of, I believe, Tim, you'll have to help me, but off of the budget before the cuts, before the
Yeah.
proposed cuts. Yeah, that's why the
Before the
numbers,
cuts.
yeah. So,
Tim made that report just based on the 29th meeting, if I'm not mistaken, just to show somewhat of an example to the Board of Revenue and Expenditures for athletics. Just what he could allocate from his research.
Which one?
The portrait,
Yeah.
the solid black that says
Purple one.
FY draft.
Right, so, but the bottom number, are we talking about the 888,890 bottom number?
Because I added the 21,242 to it to get 910,000.
Tim, you want to explain it, what you have here?
Well, this was, the first column is, Art and I went over the budget that he made changes to. That's in the first column. The second column, tentative budget expenditures, those are Chris's budgeted expenditures that are in the tentative budget book that you've all received. Okay, so those numbers in the book will be changed to reflect the athletic department budget that Art has put together.
Up to date.
So it'll reflect the 884-82185.
Well, the 884 is really, someone asked at the last meeting what kind of revenue was generated from the athletic programs. So I went through the budget and I put in the tentative budgeted revenue. For example, in football, you have $9,000. That comes from the gate. You also have some revenue that you collect for boys basketball, girls basketball. So the sports where we collect some revenue were highlighted. And then at the bottom, $43,200 was the pay to participate revenue if the board decided to approve that. That's how much we would pay in and pay.
It was just off the general recommendation.
Hey, Laura,
Right.
Laura, could we have respect and listen to the people that are talking right here, please? All right, so what I'm saying to you right now is, this is the expenditure budget for this year.
Correct.
This one right here, okay?
Okay, but
Which-
Matt, again, the numbers don't match.
Okay, but that's, all I'm saying right now is, that is something that, this is the budget that was submitted by the athletic director, by line item, by sport.
Okay, but it doesn't match this, which was a day earlier by the business person. And so what are we gonna approve?
But Laura, he's saying that in the tentative budget we received,
That was.
the numbers are based off the tentative budget that Chris put in, but Art, as subject to that, suggested these changes, but they're not dropped into the new budget yet.
Right.
So that's why you have different.
That's why there's a
numbers not
difference.
matching up.
But what are we gonna approve?
You're gonna approve this number right here, am
And
I right,
not
Art?
this.
No, you're not, you're approving this, this is what you're approving.
But we can't really approve this yet because we didn't decide what the pay-to-play is, and that's gonna affect this
Correct.
number, right?
No, because this is right now just expenditures, am I right, Art? That's only expenditures only, so you can approve this.
No.
The pay-to-play would be revenue side on the revenue side.
But the 884 is net of the pay-to-play, just like it is on this other one that doesn't quite match it.
There's $1,000 difference.
No,
Well, just the summary sheet, it says 885,992, 2011-12 is budget cuts, right? And then the total budget on the bottom is 884, 820, 822.
well, so which number do we go with, Art?
I don't know why that is there. That's a good question.
Well, in either one of the numbers
Well,
is
either one,
adjusted for pay-to-play, right?
Pay to participate is not in there, depending on what you choose to do with pay to participate. If we choose to use it for dues and fees, then you could take that dues and fees out. That would be correct. And I think that's what, if we, so that, you could take that, let's just say 39,000 out of dues and fees, and you would put our budget, put the pay to participate
Well,
amount of revenue in there.
Well, instead of overcomplicating it, is this 884, 885, whatever we're going to do, that's just expenses?
Correct.
Does not have any
Revenue
numbers for...
side.
So if we approve this on expenses,
Correct.
we could do that.
Correct.
So can I-
Explain one thing a little, I don't understand your proposal for the athletic trainer. I mean, I know Bill Fry is going to be here, but whatever you said didn't click with me, what the point is for the second one.
We have always, well, in the last couple of years, we have paid out 2 full stipends.
Okay.
2 full head trainer stipends.
Right.
So the proposal, whether we outsource it or do an assistant trainer, which is in our contract
Okay.
so I just took, we would hire an assistant trainer, not outsource it, because I don't know what that money would be outsourced. It would be probably the same. So if we continue to have 2 head trainers next year without the cuts, and then with an assistant, we would save $7,890.
So this is based on having an assistant trainer,
Correct.
which is a different, they'd report to Bill Fry then?
Correct.
And it could be somebody on the staff if they're certified, or you'll get
Correct.
some certified athletic trainer?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
All right, any
So,
questions?
yeah, I have a couple more questions on this.
Just on this one, that's what we're dealing with.
Only on this one. The way we're showing the cuts doesn't really demonstrate showing the cuts. If we were to take the actual expenditures and compare them to this budget, is the true way we really should see cuts. So, for example, stipends in the athletic department last year was only $609,000. So we're showing an increase of $18,000 increase in stipends. In addition, one of the things that you budgeted was taking last year's budget for transportation and throwing that in here. Yet you only spent $88,000 in transportation costs, and you're asking for a budget of $112,000. That's a 40%. It's $30,000. It was $24,000 increase on $88,000. What I'd like going forward is that when these are presented, not only do you show the impact, primarily what you're saving is the stipend increase by cutting stipend positions. What I'd like to see going forward is actual expenditures compared to what, what you're budgeting on. And so what I'm asking is that we look at the transportation budget. I don't know if you need $24,000 increase in transportation budget when we had 88,000 last year. And I know you were directed to just take last year's budget and throw it in there. But I'd like to see this refined on the transportation budget.
So what do you want it to be?
Do you understand, Art, I think what you,
Because if I looked at the budget for transportation, these dollars match last year's budget, dollar for dollar.
right,
We
we
did
had.
not change transportation, that was because the business manager said we
I
don't
know,
want
I
to
had
touch
heard.
transportation because you'd never know.
Fuel costs.
Fuel costs, some
But
years we travel more, some years we
$24,000
don't.
and $88,000, the percentage is, what was that?
30,
30.
almost 30%.
Yeah.
So that could have helped save some of the supply budget. And
Correct, yeah,
Still
and
meet
it-
our number for reductions.
Right, and we threw that out as an option, but we were told that we should not touch transportation because it's something that we can't really control.
But then at the same, last meeting, we just approved a lease on 2 minibuses to help alleviate some of the transportation costs.
No, we renewed the leases.
I thought they were extension of leases.
Right,
Yeah, we renewed them.
so they use them when they can,
Right.
but the team's got to be small
The
enough to
team-
fit on.
All I
the
guess I'm
football.
saying is, I'd like, if we're gonna, that's $24,000 increase to actual expenditures. Is that realistically gonna happen? If it does, I'd like the athletic department to come back to us and tell us, this is the reality. It's because gas went from $4 a gallon to $6 a gallon, and look, I just can't, as opposed to us just blindly, not knowingly, approving a $20,000 increase in transportation
Well,
budget.
I'm glad you're on the finance committee and you're meeting with him, because that's what was done for the whole budget. It took last year's budget and went off
Right.
of there. It didn't go off of this year's actual. So maybe you can, I don't think we should be harsh on the
I'm
athletic
not being
department.
harsh on
We're
them.
doing it for
Right, I'm not
everything.
being harsh on them, I'm just saying, we're asking to approve this budget.
Right.
But I think that's why we're asking for more time for the finance committee and the board, and everybody's kind of scrubbed through this, because that's something too, if we decided to retreat, if we're gonna go 10% over, I mean, right now,
Well,
it's
what I
almost a
guess,
30% over
back
budget.
to my first
Right.
comment was, if we would see what the actual expenditures were by these, it would give us a frame of reference to start looking at and saying, okay, what is the rationale between the increase
Absolutely.
and as opposed to us just coming through and looking at a context of saying, what would happen if we didn't do anything, and this is how much we're saving, versus,
All right.
Well, let me ask the question a different way that'll help you when you're thinking. Art, if you have 112,000 in transportation next year and you only spend 90, do you have a belief that you could spend the 22,000 somewhere else? Or are you able to control and say, so you, if it's there, you have a way of managing it to say, this is transportation, I'm only spending that much, this is supplies, I'm only spending
Yeah,
that
you don't
much?
transfer accounts. It's,
Okay.
we could easily do, where were we under budget? And that's one that I looked at, but I can't move that
no,
money.
yeah, I know
so-
it's in a separate fund, it's in the
Separate fund,
transportation
yeah.
fund, and I understand it. I guess I'm just coming back and going, if we're gonna look to Mike's ultimate goal of zero-based
Right.
budgeting, let's start the disciplines start happening.
And I think this is an item where the transportation was rebid last year, so we should have expected it to come under budget because we allegedly got this better deal on the bus company. So I agree, we should probably look to last year, see if we're gonna be traveling any more or less, and budget something that's closer to what we expended. As far as the stipends column, he explained prior to, on the prior meeting, that he put his salary in and the assistant's salary in
Right.
that column. So it's not just stipends.
Right.
Some of
Right,
it's salary, so that,
Right.
that's why that column is a little bit off.
So at the end, if we approve this, Art, the one sport we actually are cutting is diving, right? Because
We're cutting a diving coach to be determined if those coaches can do it or not, probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not a sport, it's part of a sport.
It's part of a
that-
sport,
that
but
we
it
wouldn't
says
have.
swimming and diving, but probably is only gonna be swimming
Correct.
this year, right? For both
Correct.
men and women, right?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, any other questions for, yes?
Yeah, one last question, Art. I saw that the disbursement for the repair to the football equipment, $11,231, and I guess that's what this is on the upper left-hand corner
Correct.
of your budget. Is it realistic to think that none of the rest of these things will ever have,
Typical repairs we do over the general athletics, and that's one of the things that I'm gonna have to generate some revenue. The football one is a guaranteed because it's helmets and shoulder pads refurbishing. So that
Okay.
one you always have. The other ones, yeah, sure, we're gonna have some repairs here and there, but in the past, we've picked that up with the overall athletic budget because.
So on a yearly basis, it'd be about $11,300.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's required by the ISHA,
Yeah.
Okay,
so that's required.
cool. All right, thank you.
All right, any
Thank
other
you.
questions for Art?
No, yeah, I still, looking at the stuff that was given to us last time, and knowing that the athletic clubs fundraise and bring in about $280,000 in their fundraising, that still bothers me, because that money's coming from community members, and it doesn't shave off any of these.
It's non-district budget, which means, and,
It's activity fee.
yeah, you're really not, well, we're not over, the board doesn't govern over that because it's not coming from property taxes. If the football team decides to sell raffle, they split the pot raffle and they do that, obviously the administration has to, and we hold the money for that. But we can't say, hey, you have to give a portion of that, or we would have to create a policy of all, a certain percentage of all fundraised dollars that go into the supply account will go back to the annual budget, something of that nature, if we created a board policy in that manner.
Well, so maybe we'll have to go to policy, but, I've had 3 kids come through, and fundraising really wasn't optional. I mean, they kind of had to do the fundraising. And so in that way, you were already paying to play. So maybe, if you're going to start with pay to play, then we stop the fundraising or something. But the fundraising has never really been optional. And it's a lot of money that's not optional.
The fundraising
I think
is-
now-
The fundraising is based to get those extra things that we're used to getting, like a sweatshirt or a t-shirt. If we got rid of fundraising, we wouldn't have those extra things. The fundraising that the kids do, the money goes back to the kid with stuff they keep, not back into the program. Maybe it was in the past, and I can't really comment on that, but moving forward, starting this year, that's how the policy is. If you fundraise, you're fundraising for a purpose, that purpose we know, and then it goes right back to the kid. So that the kid gets the benefit from that work that they put into fundraise. It's
My
not
daughter
for-
with volleyball raised funds and got a hoodie, and even I made us think about it because they weren't getting their stuff that they were promised. They got a hoodie, I think a pizza party for the team,
Yeah,
and
it's
a
whether
whole
it's
bunch
food
of stuff.
or
Yeah.
whatever, it goes back to the kids. That was not how it was in the past, but that's how it is now. That if we don't have to fundraise, we won't. But a lot of times we do so that we can give those extra things that we feel is important. It is an option for the kids, but sometimes they feel, well, if my teammate has this, I have the option not to do it, and I just won't get it. But most of the kids want to get it, so that they do it.
Well, I don't know, I think we need to talk as a board about that, because I've had 3 kids, 12 years, and it was never felt optional. And maybe somehow we can have a service to find if
But
parents
we have
feel.
a policy, 7325, and number 2 says fundraising efforts must be voluntary. So if a staff member makes a child do it involuntarily, they're violating the school policy and should be reported, and they should do something
That's right.
about it.
Well, then I wonder if somehow we have a mechanism, because, as a parent, I never felt like it was voluntary.
Well, that was in the
I think that's
past.
what
That's in the
It is
past,
now.
yeah.
But how do we know that?
We revised it.
If you felt an issue towards that, you would go to Art, first of all, you go to head coach. If you didn't feel that you were being honored or that the request was being not looked at, you'd go to Art. And then if you felt from Art that you had an issue from that, you would go to Pam. And then from Pam, you would go to Kevin. And then if you weren't even, after all that chain, you still felt bad, then we come to the board. And then the board would ask for investigation. What I'm saying right now is we have a new sheriff in town for the athletic department, and his policy is, it's voluntary, because it is a policy for us. And secondly is, it is going back to that sport that's doing the fundraising. It's not gonna go and say, hey, guess what, girls volleyball is gonna raise this amount of money, but you know what? I wanna take some of this money and throw it to football players because, we got a good team, we're gonna go to state, and I wanna get them hats and everything else like that. Art would never let that happen, am I right, Art?
Right.
That would be, the 2 other items in the policy that apply are, the fundraising efforts must be to support the organization's purpose and/or activities to general welfare, charitable cause, or educational experience for the students, and the funds shall be used to the maximum extent possible for the designated purpose. So my son raised money for football. They told him what they were going to do with it. I would expect Art will make
That's
sure
it.
they do it.
And the goal is to use that, expend those activity funds in the same year that they're collected, so they benefit the children. Sometimes there's a little left over, but.
Yeah, sometimes
you know.
you'll have leftover funds because you'll have an activity that wasn't driven by the students, that was driven by the coaches or whatever, maybe working towards getting a bigger purchase. But if the kids are doing the fundraising, the kids are benefiting from that year. They will get back material or food or whatever it might be.
You would say that the successful operation of that sport isn't dependent on the success of the fundraising?
Oh, absolutely.
It's an enhancement?
Right, absolutely.
Okay, that's good.
All right,
That
any
keeps
other
the
questions?
pressure off.
That policy was adopted September 9th, 2008 as part of the whole big package back when you were on the board. That was one of the items that was in the large,
Right, what we didn't have is there a mechanism where parents know what their recourse is if they felt like they're being pressured into fundraising? How would they know? You know, would they go up there?
I think that if their kid went to them and said, oh my God, I'm not gonna start now because I'm not gonna be that fundraiser, I think the parent would know by that.
Well, you
Am I
know.
right, or am I?
Yeah, every fundraiser that we do now, there's a letter that goes home to the parents explaining what the fundraiser is and stating in there that it's not, you don't have to do it. And if you do it, here's what you will receive. And that's something we put in place last year.
We've
That was
gone
not
through a
done
cultural
before.
Just last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, and that's, you just started, so.
Yeah,
All right, any other questions for Art?
Just a clarification, because you answered what I thought, two similar questions differently. Dan asked a good question, I thought. Are you said realistic, we won't have repairs and anything else? And you said, well, if we need it, we'll take it out of the athletic budget.
Correct.
But I asked you before, if something's not budgeted here, can you take money from somewhere else to put it there? So how,
I can take athletic repairs and make general repairs, but I can't move repair money to supply money.
or transportation
Or
to
transportation,
repairs.
anything. I'm saying that my general repairs count for athletics can help offset repairs, because you don't budget every
Yeah,
year
but-
for repairs, because you don't know that you're gonna
yeah,
have
but
that.
if somebody asked, are we approving this as the athletic budget, and there's no line for general repairs for you
Right,
on
we
here.
cut the repairs, so what I need to do this year is one of the other documents that you got was to, just a general information one of what I plan on do to help bring in extra revenue to help offset those cuts that we made this year, of repairs that I cut and supplies that I cut. So if we do get something that we haven't budgeted for, like a big repair, that I will have that money in an activity account that I can help my own fundraising to help offset these cuts, budget cuts.
The ad book you talked about before.
But we just said you couldn't use fundraising to do school board approved repairs.
I can because,
He
not
can't,
a, not a
because he's
kid.
not a specific team.
It'd be athletics, it's not gonna be specific
You
sport.
wouldn't
Right.
have the football teams do fundraiser for jersey money and then take a portion of that and give it to the general
No.
athletic fund and do supplies.
And hence, that's what he said in the previous meeting when he said about an ad book, which would be sport-wide, all sports, but it'd be just for the athletics that they could use for that, right?
Right.
Correct.
So would we see a line item in the revenue budget for additional revenues?
No,
Why
No,
not?
it's
Then
an
how do we
activity.
account for
because
that
it's an
money?
activity account. So that you would have, there's an account sheet that Tim would oversee with the school treasurer that was just hired, Jennifer McDonald, or Reynolds, but that is not a line item. And then when he wants to pay for something out of that, he has to deposit a check into a school line item account and a requisitions purchase, and it will only be cut as long as he has the funds to transfer over. But the board would not manage that money because it's fundraised dollars, just like it goes in the activity account for the other teams. Just like at June 30th, when these line items are all dumped into the ed fund, those counts can be carried over because it strictly belongs to that team and those kids and for that program.
Okay, any other questions for Art? Because I want to get this moving ahead here. So, we have a motion up here to approve the reductions in the athletic program and coaching positions as presented in July 12th. Do I have can somebody make a motion on that?
Resolved that the Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the reductions in the athletic program and coaching positions as presented in the July 12, 2011 Board Agenda Packet.
Seconded.
Okay, I think we've had hey, Mary Ann, you want to go for the vote?
Wait a minute.
Wait, you've had a lot of discussion on this.
I don't care if we have to
And I'd like to
discuss
make
it.
a motion to call the question. Do I have
I'm
a
not ready to
second?
vote.
Okay, well,
Is
I'm
everybody-
ready to
is
vote.
everybody- Okay,
Call the second.
All right,
okay.
Mary Ann, go for vote, please.
Hold on a second, did you make a motion to call the question?
Call the question.
Was there
Do I
a
have
second?
Second.
Second? Mary Ann, you want to go for the vote on that to call the question?
Dr. King,
No.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Gritchen,
No.
Ms. Hruska,
No,
Mr. Cindy.
Yes. What's the vote? 5-3? 4-3?
4-3.
Okay.
I'd like to say one thing before we move on. We're not having enough discussion if we don't have a feel for whether people are supporting this or not, in my mind. I mean, it'd be nice for us to know why people are voting against something. They put a lot of time and effort, and they reduced, as the board proposed they reduce.
We've
You know-
had over an hour and a half discussion, a 90-minute discussion on this over 2-3 meetings. And we
Matt,
keep
you're
on
missing my
bringing up the
point.
same
You don't have to always answer.
So-
The point is, we had a big discussion. I'm kind of surprised to hear, I didn't get an indication that some people have a problem with what they proposed here. And I think part of the discussion is, I have a problem with this because of this.
thing. Well, my key thing is we brought up about the activity and what's happening with that. We are talking about a budget here and cuts that we're making with the athletic program.
Right.
That's what this motion is.
I understand.
With the activity budget, fund and everything else, we've already addressed where that money's coming from, what's the policy involved with that, how it's going to be handled.
You're not even
So,
addressing
all right.
what I raised.
so we have a motion and a second for the reductions in the athletic program. Mary Ann, you want to take the vote?
We just voted on it.
Did we just vote on it?
Voted for, call the question. You didn't vote for the motion yet. All right, so Mary Ann,
That's not what we said.
I voted to call the question. All right, Mary
No,
Ann.
I didn't understand that. Read back what we said we were voting on, because if it was to call the question, I would have voted no.
I'm kind of confused.
So am I. I thought we were voting on the actual resolution.
Well, the
that was
motion
read.
up there right now was to call the question.
Well, that's not what I understood, so I
Mike
suggest that we
seconded,
vote
did you
again.
understand that's what I was saying?
So the question is, what can we, if someone misunderstands their vote, can he rescind it?
Never had that happen.
Yeah, it's in the policy.
Yes.
Yeah. If we were
So-
voting on whether we were calling the question, my vote on that is no. I want Laura to have a chance to say what she wanted to say. That's why I raised the thing. I was surprised people are voting against the actual resolution. So that was confusing
So
to
what
me.
does it say in the book? The silence is killing us.
It's going to make this one very interesting to you.
Where's your electronic device?
Any board member may request that his or her vote be changed before the president announces the result.
But I announced the result, 4-3. So can you rescind it then?
It doesn't say about rescinding. This would be under 2:220.
Okay. So do you want to rescind your vote then?
Well, I don't have to, because if you actually vote for the resolution, we can have a discussion after it's seconded, right?
We already motioned and seconded.
Yeah, I would like Laura to have a chance to speak if that's what we were
But I
voting
had to
for.
call the question, which means that we're ready to.
Well,
vote
it's
on
the,
motion.
okay, I'm sorry for being ignorant. It's the first time it happens to have been on the board. I didn't know that's what we were voting for, and if I had known what we were voting for, I would have voted no so that Laura could ask her question.
All right, so what I'm saying right now is we've had a motion, we've had a second, we've had a motion to call the question, we've had a second. It was a 4-3 vote to call the question. We're ready to go for a vote. Mary Ann, will you please go for a vote?
Are we voting on the?
Motion.
Okay.
can you please read the motion again,
Read
Mary
the
Ann?
resolution.
Please.
I'll read it again. The motion was resolved that the Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, hereby approves the reductions in the athletic program and coaching positions as presented in the July 12, 2011 Board Agenda Pack.
All right, Mary Ann, will you go for the vote, please?
Okay. Mr. Moon?
Aye.
Mr. Welch?
Can I hold my vote till the end?
Why would you want to do that?
Because I want to.
No, it says
You have to do it in the order that you
it'll be a rotational. Do you want me to get that language?
No. Aye.
Yep, excuse me.
We didn't have a
We didn't have a second.
You did second
did
it.
second.
We seconded before
Okay.
they voted.
Yeah.
We're reaching back.
Yeah.
Fine.
All right, Mary Ann.
Keep going. Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Gritchen?
No.
Ms. Hruska?
No.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Cindy?
Yes. Okay, 5-2, the vote, motion passes.